Representative Tulsi Gabbard has finally dropped out of the Democratic primary. And I say finally because she really never gained any traction. And some people were actually surprised that she was still in the race. And she decided to announce that she is endorsing a candidate. Who's that candidate? Well, why don't we hear from her?
I feel that the best way that I can be of service at this time is to continue to work for the health and well-being of the people of Hawaii and our country in Congress, and to stand ready to serve in uniform should the Hawaii National Guard be activated. Now, after Tuesday's election, it's clear that Democratic primary voters have chosen Vice President Joe Biden to be the person who will take on President Trump in the general election. I know Vice President Biden and his wife, and I'm grateful to have called his son, Beau, a friend who also served in the National Guard. Now, although I may not agree with the Vice President on every issue, I know that he has a good heart, and he's motivated by his love for our country and the American people. I'm confident that he will lead our country guided by the spirit of aloha, respect, and compassion, and thus help heal the divisiveness that has been tearing our country apart. So today, I'm suspending my presidential campaign and offering my full support to Vice President Joe Biden in his quest to bring our country together.
Amazing.
So I can't tell how you're going to react to this.
Look. We have titled this story Anna's Victory Lap because I'm gonna take a victory lap. What did I tell you guys? What did I tell you? Like, no one believed me. Everyone, because I was one of the first to like actually care enough to look at her record and look at the way that she voted on a number of issues. Look at her rhetoric, the way she talked about torture. Like in 2014, I'm sorry, by 2014, everyone knew what that torture consisted of. We knew about the waterboarding. We knew about, I hate to say it, rectal feeding. It was full-blown torture. And in 2014, years after we knew about how brutal and criminal that so-called enhanced interrogation was, she sits there during an interview and questions the validity of a, Senate report on the brutality of that torture and didn't give a straight answer about how disgusting and criminal that torture really was. I mean, that was like one red flag, but there had been so many. And every time I would bring them up, and every time I would question her so-called progressive label, people thought, oh, she's being catty. Anna's jealous. What am I jealous of? There's nothing to be jealous of, right? I'm doing my job. And people just completely dismissed it, trashed me. I don't know what Tulsi Gabbard's political ideology is. She's all over the place, right? And I want people to understand through this story that the only obligation or responsibility that I ever feel is toward my viewers. And if that means I'm gonna have to deal with some backlash in the short term, that's okay, because all dark things come to light, period.
So the question I have is, I get that you're taking a victory lap. I can see that. No, but it's I get that. So is the victory lap that you predicted that she would endorse Biden specifically?
No, my victory lap is more about the fact that she was never this like strong progressive who's going to uphold progressive values. I mean, look, first off, I know that the establishment thinks the primary is over, right? And it would be very difficult for Bernie Sanders to catch up to Joe Biden, but he hasn't dropped out of the race yet. And so she couldn't even wait until he drops out for her like to make this endorsement. And by the way, it's one thing to say, look, he's not my preferred candidate, but he is better than Trump. And so as a result, I'm backing Joe Biden. But she put together this like super lengthy video where she's like, oh, Joe Biden and Beau, both besties, were like totally good friends. And he really believes in like peace and love and aloha. And it's like, come on, man. Like, do you really need to go that far? Because fact of the matter is Joe Biden has been very much in favor of the forever wars that Tulsi Gabbard claims to be against.
Well, Yeah, so that's why, like, I definitely didn't predict that she would endorse Biden. I definitely didn't predict that she would endorse Biden while Bernie was still in the race. But I mean, she has been very consistent that she would eventually endorse a different Democrat if she wasn't the person. That's why I wasn't that shocked by that. In terms of the eventually lining up behind Biden, I mean, it's sort of been there if you wanted to see it this past year. I mean, she has been, like, there's basically two people she hasn't attacked. She hasn't attacked Bernie, and she hasn't attacked Biden. Everyone else she was attacking, and we understand why she wouldn't attack Bernie. That makes all the sense in the world. But why, like, if your whole campaign is based around anti-interventionism, I'm like going from her pitch, from her point of view, then he is exactly who you should be differentiating yourself from. But she never did that. And in fact, early on, she defended Joe Biden on this exact issue. So, like, objectively, from a Mile High perspective, it doesn't make any sense that she would do this. But if you've been watching the primary, it's not that surprising, really.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When Kamala Harris called Joe Biden out for working, with some of the worst Republicans in the past in order to fight against busing, right? Tulsi Gabbard like defended Biden. So that was like red flag number one. But look, it's not even about like, okay, she endorsed Biden, that's fine. But for me, this is consistent with a pattern that I've seen through her political career. That's problematic, right? That's problematic for people who are genuinely looking for progressive candidates to support. She is not a progressive, period.